Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. Liverpool moved back to the top of the Premier League while pushing Spurs back into a dogfight for finish in the top four. How did Liverpool do it? Where did Spurs go wrong? Don't worry, here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to briefly break down how Liverpool beat Spurs. So before we get into today's video, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. In today's video, we're going to break down the first half, see what tactical issues Spurs encountered and why Liverpool were able to gain control of the game. Then move to the second half, see what changes Spurs made before Liverpool were able to kill things off and move back to the top of the Premier League. But first, let's get to the starting lineups. We look at Liverpool, no real surprises here. Klopp going with his usual big game lineup. Salah, Mane, and Firmino up front. In midfield, Wijnaldum, Henderson, and Milner. Then we look to Spurs, moving to a 3-5-2. Lucas Moura and Harry Kane up front. Out in the wing-back roles, and with Danny Rose and Kieran Trippier. And in midfield, Dele Alli and Eriksen ahead of Sissoko. So now let's get to the first half. See how Liverpool were able to dominate Spurs in that opening period and why Spurs struggled tactically. So when we look at Liverpool against Spurs, we break down the first half, we look at the shape. Why did Spurs move to a three-man backline? Well, Liverpool do have a very pacey attacking three with Firmino, who did drop off a bit deeper to ensure that Liverpool had a numerical advantage in those central zones. And with that happening, you can't have Trippier and Rose pushing forward with only two center backs. Here you have three, so you have Vertonghen and Alderweireld who could shift out into the channels if the ball is played beyond the wing backs, which is why they set up in that position. You have the midfield three in Ali and Eriksen just ahead of Sissoko, and then you have the front two who would obviously look to break into the channels as they have throughout the season. Pressing from the front, they did have Kane and they had Lucas Moura stepping to Matip and to Van Dijk, and if Henderson tried to drop off a bit deeper, they could push Dele Alli towards him and then have Eriksen and Sissoko stick onto the midfielders there. On several other occasions, they would have Harry Kane and they would have Lucas Moura sit just ahead of Henderson to ensure that he couldn't get on the ball and force Matip and force Van Dijk to push forward. With that being said, if Liverpool did want to push the fullbacks forward, which they did do, that would force Ali to step out to Trent Alexander-Arnold, and it would force Eriksen to push out to Robertson. And that was one of the big issues that Spurs had, based off the fact that Mane and Salah were holding narrow positions just ahead of the wing backs to occupy them. Firmino dropping off a bit deeper, so theoretically, Vertonghen, Alderweireld, and Davinson Sanchez didn't have any players marking, and that would push them out narrow, and Liverpool could push men forward. It was a bit shocking that they never had played the ball into Robertson more often in the opening 15 minutes, because when this does happen, what you do see is that if the ball is switched out to Arnold, Ali steps out there. You have Sissoko moving into midfield to cover his man, and then Eriksen's tucked in narrow, which is why Robertson is free and vice versa. So for Liverpool, the key thing here would be is to switch the ball quick from flank to flank to ensure that they can't push the fullbacks forward and gain their threat and gain their ascendancy on the game, which is what they did in the opening half, and we'll get to their chances in a bit. But without the ball, they were just as good. Simply, we didn't see any real changes here. Without it, you would have Firmino stepping to Sanchez, and then, like I said, Mane and Salah would block off the passes between the wider center backs in Vertonghen and Alderweireld and the wing backs. So with that being said, they push out there, and even if Spurs wanted to push, they dropped off Sissoko a bit deeper, but they would have Milner and they would have Wijnaldum kind of stepping right on either side of him, and that would block off passes into Eriksen and into Ali. And if they wanted to push the ball into Sissoko there, if need be, Henderson could step forward. So there obviously was a gamble that they could go 2v2 up front, but they were never able to play out the back, and they really struggled, Spurs in particular, to create chances in that opening period. A lot of it stemmed through Liverpool mistakes from the front, and even though they had Eriksen who could drop off a bit deeper to pick up the ball in midfield, that wasn't really working for them here. When you think about, like I said, Spurs' issues in that 3-5-2, At some point, you would have to think, why not shift out Lucas Moura to drop off a bit deeper without the ball, which Pochettino eventually did. We'll get to that later when they have the ball in those wider areas, but that wasn't done, and they struggled to get their shuttlers out into those wider positions. So now let's get to Liverpool's chances in the first half, see how they were able to break down Spurs' midfield issues, and then we'll get to Spurs and see what chances they created. So when we break down Liverpool's first half chances, a lot of it stemmed down the left-hand side where Spurs were having issues. When you break down their system, like I said, the shuttlers are responsible for pushing out to the fullbacks. And if Liverpool were able to switch the ball from left to right swiftly, then that would cause Eriksen and Ali problems because, like I said, if the ball is shifted out to the left, Eriksen was tucking in and getting caught narrow, and Robertson was pushing forward, taking advantage of that space with Mane sitting narrow on top of Trippier to ensure that he couldn't push out to that marker. With that being said, you look to the build up to the goal. Salah dropping off the ball to Henderson after dropping into midfield, and Henderson switches the ball out to Robertson, who is now able to push forward with Alderweireld obviously shifting across, and that allows Firmino to make a darting run in between Vertonghen and in between Sanchez as he pushes and directs for Robertson to play the ball into that space, and he breaks into not an effort off the ground past Lloris, and just like that, it's 1-0. But like I said, they were having a lot of issues down this side based off the fact that James Milner was also willingly shifting out to the flank to get on the ball and dropping off a bit deeper, and we saw that also in the earlier stages with Eriksen looking to shift out to close down Robertson as Liverpool play out the back, and Milner instantly drops into that space to get the ball, and he pokes it into Milner, and then Milner gives it back to Trippier, and at some point, and when he gives it back to Robertson, at some point Trippier has to come forward. Eventually he does, and when he does get forward, you have Mane drifting out to that left channel to drag out Alderweireld. So when you break down that side, you have Eriksen, you have Trippier, and you have Alderweireld, who should be able to deal with that 3v3 battle, and they did so here with Mane being shut off by Alderweireld and Trippier coming across. But what did he do? He instantly played the ball back to Milner, who switched the ball wide to Alexander-Arnold, who was able to break forward beyond a narrow Dele Alli. Yes, the cross didn't get through into the box, but it just goes to show how they're able to switch the ball from flank to flank and gain an advantage. Shortly after that, we do see a chance that is created. Again, this time it's Milner dropping off a bit deeper, and you have Eriksen stepping to him. And what happens now is that Mane drops off to drag out Alderweireld from a narrow position, and you have Robertson running in behind Trippier for that long ball to be sprayed into him. And although he gets across there, he's held up by his marker, and Alderweireld and Trippier come across, but he's able to see Salah making the run deep into that left half space to get the ball back. He squares it to Wijnaldum after gaining yard on Rose, who tees up Mane, who curls his effort inches wide of the net. But just like that, you see how they could break down that left-hand side. Eriksen pinching when he doesn't need to, and that's just a breakdown by every single Spurs player when perhaps you maybe allow Milner to get the ball and then step forward, and maybe when he gets to half, then you have Eriksen shift across. But there, they gambled, the pressing wasn't right, and they were broken down. Final opportunity is when we do see Spurs move to more of a 5-4-1 without the ball. That 5-4-1 saw Lucas Moura on the left, and it saw Eriksen on the right. And basically what it does is that when they win the ball, you have Lucas Moura joining Harry Kane up front. Here, what we do see is Lucas Moura kind of getting a bit antsy, and he steps to Matip, who slides the ball out to Alexander-Arnold. And that he plays it out to Wijnaldum, where Dele Alli is tracking him, and Wijnaldum slides it out to Alexander-Arnold, who Ali should necessarily be pressing. Now when he steps to him, Arnold bypasses him and plays the ball into Salah, who drags out Vertonghen. When he drags out Vertonghen, he plays the ball central to Firmino, squares it to him, and now we see the threat, because when he slides the ball to Mane, you have Eriksen caught narrow once again and Robertson overlapping, and that allows Mane to cut in and again fire a shot on goal. But just like that, you see the breakdown as to how Liverpool are getting in behind Spurs, how they were causing them problems by switching from flank to flank, and even Spurs' system that eventually did do well because you had Ali, you had Lucas, and you had Eriksen closing down in those wider areas, which did ensure that Robertson and Arnold were quiet for the final 10 minutes of the half. But initially, that was one way that they could break them down. But now let's get to the second half, see what tactical changes Pochettino made before Liverpool were able to kill off the game in the second half. So when we look to the second half, we see Spurs move to a 4-4-2. What happened here is that Vertonghen moved to left back. They pushed Danny Rose a bit higher, which offers protection for Vertonghen, and he does offer somewhat of an attacking threat for a fullback. And what ended up happening there was Eriksen moved to the right, who did tuck in narrow, and we had Trippier pushing up a bit higher up the pitch. Nothing really changed in terms of how they were building out of the back because, like I said, Vertonghen was sitting a bit narrow. They had Trippier pushing forward, and they had also Rose pushing forward with Eriksen tucking in. So obviously it does ensure that they do get wider players higher up the pitch, but in terms of the way that Liverpool were pressing, it didn't really change anything for them, and it also kind of made things much more easier for them. However, Spurs did have gain threats down the left-hand side and the right, and that's what made the move worth it. Because when we look to the opening stages, we see them press from the front, we see Firmino step to Toby Alderweireld, we see Mane step off to Davinson Sanchez, and we see Salah block off a passing lane into Vertonghen. And with Dele dropping off a bit deeper, you have James Milner pushing over to him. But with Milner pushing over to him, you have Alderweireld, who is pressed by Firmino, but he's able to gain a yard ahead of him around his box, and we see Sissoko slide into a position between Salah and Milner to get the ball. And when he picks up the ball, now he's able to carry it forward. And when he carries it forward, he slides it wide to Danny Rose. Danny Rose is able to pick it up down the left-hand side and locate Kane, making the run across Matip. So when he makes the run across Matip, who does miss the ball, Van Dijk now has to cover, and Kane takes his first touch across him, fires a shot on goal that is pushed into the path of Eriksen, but his shot is blocked by Robertson. But just like that, you see how they're able to get Rose involved, and that was pivotal there. Shortly after that, one of the other issues that they do have is because when you look at it, if they do press like that, it makes sense that Milner and Wijnaldum pick up Ali and Sissoko breaking into space. But here we saw Mane trying to step to Alderweireld, and what happens there is that he clips the ball over Mane for Trippier down that right-hand side, and that forces Milner to come across in the 4-3-3. The shuttler should push over. He does push over, but he plays the ball beyond him for Kane, that drags out Matip, and once Kane gets the ball, he instantly switches it out to Rose again, who is free to break down that left channel, and he delivers across into the box for Lucas, breaking across Van Dijk, but Van Dijk does enough to clear his lines. Shortly after that, one more opportunity that kind of sums things up. Sissoko sliding the ball out wide to Trippier, and that sees Robertson now step forward, and now we have Eriksen making an intelligent darting run into that right channel, and he drags out Henderson. When he drags out Henderson, he's able to take a few touches and deliver another dangerous cross into the box that is eventually cleared by Matip for a corner kick. But just like that, you see the tactical change did help Spurs push higher up the pitch and get Rose and Trippier involved, and eventually saw Son enter the game for Sanchez, and they pushed Son a bit higher initially. So with Son pushing forward, that means Lucas Moura went to the left, Danny Rose moved back to left back, and you had Vertonghen move into center back position. But just like that, what happens is that Liverpool also moved to a 4-4-2, which saw Firmino and it saw Salah up front, and it then saw Mane move out to the left-hand side, and it saw Wijnaldum move out to the right. So with that being said, now they match up in midfield against each other, but Spurs instantly responded. Kane dropping off a bit deeper with Salah looking to step to Vertonghen, and Kane is fouled by Henderson, and instantly what he does do, he locates Trippier making a run off Mane. Makes the run off Mane, quick free kick, diagonal ball out to the right channel. We have him there, Trippier pushing forward, and he pulls it back for Eriksen breaking into the box. Van Dijk doesn't make a tackle. Son makes a cross, running dart across Matip, and he pulls the ball back for Lucas Moura ahead of Alexander-Arnold, and he fires a low shot past the keeper. We see Klopp eventually turn to his bench. He brought on Origi. He brought on Origi, and after that, he ended up moving to Fabinho. That saw Milner and Henderson leave. Origi to the left. You had Mane to the right, more of a 4-2-4. But with that being said, Liverpool didn't create many chances. You had the Salah 2v1 when Dele Alli was dispossessed. Salah opted to shoot. It was blocked. We saw a pass out of the back for Danny Rose from Vertonghen, pressed by Wijnaldum. It led to the ball being played into Salah, turned, fired a shot over the net. Alexander-Arnold curling an effort on goal. Lloris pushed it over the net. Tactical change didn't really help Spurs out. Didn't really help out Liverpool here. They weren't creating any chances, and it was Spurs who had the better chances in the final 10 minutes. The 2v1 that Sissoko opted to shoot late over the net. You had a long ball played in and cleared by Vertonghen into Son, who nodded it into Eriksen. And again, you have Ali making a deep late run beyond the fullbacks, and Eriksen clips the ball across the center backs for Ali to pick it up and cut in across Matip, but he chips his effort over the net. And when they break down the game as a whole, the winner stems from a poor Lloris punch off Toby Alderweireld, and Liverpool were able to secure all 3 points in the dying minutes of the game. When you break it down as a whole and you assess it, Liverpool getting the better of Spurs' shape in the initial period, Spurs eventually switching to a 5-4-1, then in the second half moving to a 4-4-2 and causing Liverpool issues with their fullbacks, or Rose playing a bit higher and Trippier being able to push higher to create more width, and they were able to cause Liverpool several problems before Son came on and did play up front for a short period before moving out to the left to ensure that Arnold didn't have much of a threat. So Pochettino did well, and unfortunately for him, an individual error cost Spurs 3 points, pushed them deeper into that top 4 race, and pushes Liverpool 2 points ahead of City with a game ahead as their title charge goes on. But let me know what you guys think. Will Liverpool win the Premier League title, and what about Spurs? Have they dug themselves into a hole that ensures that they won't finish in the top 4? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget to upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.